When the judge slammed the gavel, the room went silent. The officer thought he'd gotten away with it, until the truth came out. And what the judge said next changed everything. It was just another Wednesday afternoon. The sun hung low over the rooftops as 17-year-old Jalen Carter made his usual walk home from school. His earbuds played soft music, while his hands held a brown paper bag with snacks and a bottle of iced tea he picked up from the corner store. Jalen was a quiet kid, straight A's, polite, and focused on earning a scholarship to study computer science. But none of that would matter. As he crossed 5th and Delmar, a black and white police cruiser rolled up fast beside him. The doors slammed. Officer Travis Denton, known around the neighborhood for his aggressive approach, stepped out. "You, hands where I can see them," Denton shouted. Jalen froze, heart pounding. "Me?" he asked, confused. "Don't play smart," Denton snapped. "You match the description. You just robbed Midtown Electronics." Jalen blinked in disbelief. I was just at the corner store. I didn't go near any electronics shop," but the officer didn't care. Within seconds, Denton had Jalen face down against the hood of the patrol car. People walking by started to slow. Some watched, some recorded, but no one stepped in. Jalen tried to explain, but Denton wasn't listening. He reached for Jalen's backpack and searched through it. "Look what we've got here," Denton said, pulling out a sleek pair of wireless earbuds still in the packaging. "Stolen goods." Jalen's face went pale. "That's not mine. I didn't have those." Denton only smirked. "Tell it to the judge." The cuffs clicked shut. Jalen didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning. A storm was coming, one that would shake the courtroom, the city, and the badge that started it all. Inside the cold, fluorescent-lit police station, Jalen sat in silence. His wrists still ached from the tight handcuffs. His bag had been tossed onto a metal table, and Officer Denton stood in the corner, writing something down with a smug grin on his face. Jalen looked around, confused and scared. No one was talking to him. No one asked him for his side of the story. After a few minutes, Denton slammed a file onto the desk in front of a desk sergeant. "Caught him with stolen goods just 5 blocks from the scene," he said confidently. "Matches the suspect description, and the merchandise was in his possession." The sergeant glanced at Jalen. "You sure?" "Positive," Denton replied without hesitation. "Saw him acting suspicious. He ran when he saw me, and when I stopped him, the earbuds were in his bag." Jalen's head shot up. "That's a lie. I never ran, and I never had those in my bag." "Watch your tone," Denton barked. "You want to add resisting arrest to the list?" The sergeant shrugged. "All right, we'll process him." Jalen felt like the walls were closing in. He thought of his mom, Kendra Carter, who was probably wondering why he hadn't come home. His phone had been taken. He had no way to call her. In another room, Denton quietly pulled a USB drive from his pocket. He knew the earbuds had never been in Jalen's bag. He had slipped them in himself, just like he had done before, to other boys who never made it out clean. But this time, something was different. Unbeknownst to Denton, a newly installed camera in the booking room had recorded everything. A truth he thought would stay buried was now quietly waiting for the right time to rise. Back on Maple Street, Kendra Carter paced her living room floor. The clock on the wall ticked louder with each passing minute. Jalen was never late, not without calling. She dialed his number again. No answer. Her chest tightened. Just as she was reaching for her keys to drive around, the home phone rang. It was the Harrison County Police Department. "Ms. Carter? This is Officer Ramirez. Your son, Jalen Carter, has been brought in for questioning related to a theft earlier today." Kendra's voice caught. "What? What are you talking about? My son just left school. He doesn't steal." "You can come to the station, ma'am." She didn't waste a second. Within 30 minutes she was inside the precinct, demanding answers. She spotted Jalen through the glass of the holding room. His head was down, eyes filled with confusion and fear. "Let me see my son," she shouted at the front desk officer. Officer Denton appeared, calm and smug. "Miss Carter, your son was caught with stolen electronics in his possession, from Midtown Electronics. He fits the description, and the evidence is solid." Kendra stepped forward. "My son was walking home from school. He had a bag of snacks. That's it. Jalen is on the honor roll. He doesn't even know how to lie, let alone steal." "I understand you're upset," Denton said flatly, "but this is the law." She turned to the sergeant. "I want a lawyer. Immediately." The sergeant nodded reluctantly. "That's your right." As Jalen was allowed a short visit with his mother, he whispered, "Mom, I swear I didn't do anything. I know, baby, she said softly, tears in her eyes. We're going to fight this, I promise. But deep down, she already sensed it. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was a setup. The next morning, Jalen sat quietly in a narrow conference room at the courthouse. Across from him sat a man in a wrinkled suit with tired eyes and a half-drunk cup of coffee. Darren Wells, the public defender assigned to his case. Wells flipped through a thin folder, sighing. "You're lucky this is your first offense," he said without looking up. "They might go easy." Jalen frowned. "But I didn't do anything. I didn't steal those earbuds. They weren't in my bag when I left the store." Wells finally glanced up. "Look, kid, I've seen 100 cases like this. The officer's report says he found the stolen items in your backpack. There's surveillance footage from the store, but it doesn't show the theft directly. Just someone in a hoodie running out. They're saying it was you." Jalen leaned forward. "It wasn't me. Ask the guy at the corner store. I was there buying snacks. Check the cameras there." Wells blinked. "Corner store? Huh, that might help. But honestly, most corner stores don't even keep their footage." He paused. "You really expect a judge to believe Officer Denton planted evidence?" Jalen stared at him. "Yes, because he did." Wells exhaled slowly. "I'll file a discovery request, but don't expect miracles. Denton is a decorated officer. No one wants to believe he'd lie." Just then, Kendra entered the room. "Is this man going to defend my son or not?" Wells looked at her, then back at Jalen. "I'll do what I can, but you should prepare yourself. It's going to be his word against a cop's." What none of them knew was that somewhere in the station's evidence room, a small USB drive sat in a sealed bag, waiting. On it was a silent truth blinking in the dark. And that truth was about to speak. 2 days before the trial, a young technician named Eli Moreno sat in the dimly lit evidence room, sorting through digital files from the police station's recent hardware upgrades. He had been assigned the tedious task of cataloging surveillance data from new cameras recently installed, one of them placed quietly in the booking area. Eli scrolled through footage, half distracted, until a timestamp caught his eye, 3:42 p.m., the same day Jalen was arrested. He clicked. On screen, Officer Denton stood alone in the booking room. Jalen's backpack lay on the table, untouched. Denton glanced over his shoulder, reached into his pocket, and pulled out a small box, earbuds. He looked around again, then quickly unzipped the backpack and slipped the box inside. Eli's eyes widened. He replayed it twice to be sure. The footage was clear. He leaned back in his chair, stunned. This wasn't just evidence. This was proof. A decorated officer, framing a teenager. Eli stood up, heart pounding. He wasn't supposed to take anything from the room, but this couldn't wait. He copied the footage onto a USB drive, carefully labeling it and logging its transfer. He rushed down the hallway to his supervisor's office. "You need to see this," he said urgently. By the next morning, the district attorney's office had a copy. Word traveled fast, especially to Judge Lenora Hayes, who had been assigned Jalen's case. Behind closed doors, the judge watched the footage in silence. Her jaw clenched. She paused the video. Denton's hand still caught mid-motion over the backpack. She picked up the phone. "Get me the defense attorney, now." A new energy filled the courthouse. What was once an open and shut case had just exploded wide open, and Jalen Carter had just gained the one thing every innocent kid prays for: a second chance. The morning of the trial arrived with heavy clouds hanging low over the city. The courthouse lobby buzzed with reporters, legal interns, and spectators whispering about the leaked footage. Jalen sat beside his lawyer, attorney Renee Marshall, his palms sweating as the judge entered. Behind him, his mother, aunt, and a few close friends held their breath. "Court is now in session," the bailiff called. Judge Lenora Hayes took her seat, her expression unreadable. The prosecution opened as expected, sticking to their narrative. Jalen was caught shoplifting, had the stolen item in his bag, and Officer Denton's testimony was unimpeachable. Then it was the defense's turn. Attorney Marshall stood, calm and composed. "Your Honor, we request the court to review a critical piece of evidence we received less than 24 hours ago. It directly contradicts the officer's sworn statement." Judge Hayes narrowed her eyes. "Proceed." The screen lit up with the surveillance footage. It played. Silent, clear, undeniable. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Jalen stared, jaw dropped, watching the very moment Officer Denton placed the earbuds in his backpack. The prosecutor looked shaken. The judge paused the footage, then looked directly at Denton, seated confidently until now. His face had drained of all color. "Officer Denton," she said, voice sharp, "do you have any explanation for this footage?" Denton stammered. I don't know where that came from. It must be doctored." "It was pulled from your own department's camera system," Judge Hayes interrupted, her voice thunderous. She turned to the courtroom. "This trial is no longer about a boy accused of theft. It is about a betrayal of public trust." Murmurs erupted. Reporters scribbled feverishly. Jalen's mother began to cry, this time tears of hope, and for the first time since his arrest, Jalen began to believe justice might actually be on his side. As the courtroom slowly settled from the explosive revelation, Judge Hayes gestured toward Officer Denton once more. "I'm giving you a chance to explain yourself. If you remain silent, I'll have no choice but to proceed with perjury and misconduct charges." Denton shifted uncomfortably in the witness box. He glanced toward the prosecutor's table, but no lifeline came. His attorney wasn't present. He hadn't thought he'd need one. With all eyes on him, the once confident officer swallowed hard. I was under pressure," he muttered, barely audible. Judge Hayes leaned forward. "Speak up." "I said I was under pressure," Denton barked, now red with emotion. "They told us to clean up the streets, keep 'em in check. Said if kids got mouthy, they needed to learn consequences. I thought if I could make an example of someone." "So, you planted evidence on an innocent teenager?" the judge asked, her voice laced with disgust. Denton didn't answer. He didn't need to. Jalen's lawyer stood up, calmly stating, "Your Honor, in light of this confession, I move for immediate dismissal of all charges against my client and recommend the court launch a formal investigation into Officer Denton and his department's practices." "I don't think that'll be necessary," Judge Hayes said firmly, "because I've already called for an internal affairs representative to attend this hearing. They're waiting in the hallway." The courtroom erupted again. Jalen sat frozen, his heart pounded. He was cleared, but more than that, the man who tried to ruin his life would finally face the consequences. His mother clutched his hand, trembling. "We're gonna be okay, baby." Jalen looked over at Officer Denton, who now sat slumped in shame. For the first time, it was Denton who looked like the one trapped, with no way out. As the bailiff escorted Officer Denton from the stand, murmurs swept through the courtroom. But before Judge Hayes could gavel for recess, Jalen's lawyer stepped forward once more. "Your Honor, with your permission, I'd like to submit an additional piece of evidence into the court record, something that not only confirms Officer Denton's actions, but also exposes the depth of corruption behind it." Judge Hayes arched a brow. "Proceed." The lawyer pulled out a small USB drive. "This contains audio recordings taken from the officer's own dashcam and body cam, footage that somehow never made it into the official police report. Luckily, we obtained it through a Freedom of Information request, just in time." He connected it to a laptop and projected the footage on the courtroom screen. At first, the video showed a quiet street, Officer Denton parked with the lights off. The audio crackled, then came Denton's voice. "This kid's mouthy. He thinks he's smarter than us. Let's see how smart he feels when they haul him into court for a theft rap." The courtroom fell deathly silent. More audio played. This time, Denton talking to another officer. "Slip the phone under the counter. I'll act like I found it on him." Gasps. Even the prosecutor dropped his pen. Jalen's eyes welled up. This wasn't just a mistake. It was malicious, intentional, and now undeniable. Judge Hayes was visibly furious. This is not law enforcement. This is criminal conspiracy." The internal affairs officer, seated in the back, rose immediately. "Officer Denton will be taken into custody for questioning. His badge is officially suspended pending investigation." The tide had fully turned. Jalen was no longer the one on trial. Now, the system that tried to destroy him would face its own reckoning. The courtroom remained in stunned silence as the officers escorted Denton out in handcuffs. Jalen sat frozen, emotions swirling inside him, relief, disbelief, and a lingering anger that refused to fade. Judge Hayes cleared his throat and adjusted his glasses. "I believe this case requires no further deliberation. But before we reach a verdict, I'd like to hear one last voice. Jalen Carter, would you like to speak?" Jalen's lawyer nodded to him gently. Jalen stood slowly, his palms trembling slightly, and approached the podium. He looked around the courtroom, at his mother, still tearful but proud, at the jurors, at the very people who had doubted him. "I didn't ask for any of this," Jalen began. "I didn't want to be a headline or a case number. I just wanted to live my life, graduate high school, and maybe one day make something of myself. He paused, his voice thickening. But I learned the hard way that the truth doesn't always speak for itself. Sometimes, you have to fight for it, even when it feels like the whole world is against you. People in the gallery were leaning forward now, fully locked in. I'm not angry just for me, Jalen said, his voice rising. I'm angry for every kid who didn't get a lawyer, who didn't get a fair judge, or who never had someone believe them. This system isn't broken. It's working exactly how it was designed, for some to lose before they ever get a chance to play. The judge sat solemnly, taking it all in. Even the prosecutor looked deeply shaken. Jalen took one final breath. But I'm still here, and I'm not going away. The courtroom burst into quiet, respectful applause, something rare and unscripted, and for the first time since the nightmare began, Jalen felt seen. As the murmurs in the courtroom settled, Judge Hayes looked over his bench with measured calm. His gaze rested first on Jalen, then on the crowd, before he slowly leaned forward and began to speak. This court has reviewed all the evidence, heard the testimonies, and witnessed the unraveling of a serious miscarriage of justice, he began. Jalen Carter, you have endured what no innocent teenager should. I offer not just my verdict, but my apology. The room hushed completely. This court finds you not guilty of all charges. You are fully acquitted, and your record will be expunged immediately. Jalen's mother gasped, covering her mouth with both hands. His lawyer placed a reassuring hand on his back as Jalen dropped his head, overcome with emotion. His innocence, finally, publicly, declared. But Judge Hayes wasn't done. And to Officer Denton, he continued sternly, you will face full criminal prosecution for obstruction of justice, falsifying evidence, and abuse of power. Whispers rippled through the courtroom. This case will be used in future training, and I will personally recommend a state-level review of how juvenile cases are handled, Judge Hayes said. This cannot happen again. Reporters began scribbling furiously. What had started as a routine case was now turning into a national story. As Jalen exited the courtroom with his mother, a crowd had gathered outside. Some applauded. Some held signs that read "Justice for Jalen." Cameras flashed. A reporter asked, Jalen, what will you do now? Jalen looked ahead. Tell my story, he said. And make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else. The teen who once stood accused now walked free. Not just with justice, but with purpose. A new chapter of his life had begun. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful true-to-life narratives. And comment below, do you think Officer Denton got what he deserved?